All right, I think we will go ahead and get started. We've got a good number of people logged in. So hello everyone, and welcome to the second episode of the Learn by Doing at Home series, where we bring the cafe's classroom to your home. My name is Allison Fishlin, and I work in the Dean's Office for the College of Agriculture, Food, and Environmental Sciences. Today's lesson will focus on the topics of foraging, floral arranging, and everyday entertaining to brighten your home. This is an interdisciplinary course showcasing lecturers from two different departments within our college. Melinda Lynch, a lecturer in our Horticulture and Crop Science department, will be showing us how to design a floral arrangement. And Amber Karson, a lecturer in our Experience Industry Management department, will be teaching us how to style our dinner table. Before we get started, just a few housekeeping items. For the best viewing of today's class, please select speaker view versus gallery view, and you can do this in the top right corner of your Zoom screen. If you have any questions during this session, please feel free to put them in the chat, and we will do our best to answer them throughout the class. And we would love to see your photos of you learn by doing at home. So please snap a picture and share on social media using hashtag #LearnByDoingAtHome. And be sure to tag us on Instagram at calpoly_cafes and on Facebook at calpoly.cafes. We'll put that in the chat for you. And lastly, before I hand things off to our instructors to get the class started, we'd like to know a little bit about who is joining us today. So please answer the following poll to share how you are affiliated to Cal Poly. All right, and we'll wait for people to submit their answers. Thank you so much for participating. We'll give it a few more seconds. Awesome. Well, it looks like the majority of people joining us today, a little over half, are Cal Poly alumni, which is awesome. Thank you so much for joining. We also have some parents and Cal Poly friends who are joining us today, as well as a few students and faculty and staff. So thank you all for joining, and thanks for participating in the poll. All right, without further ado, we will get the class started. So I will kick things over to our instructors.
Well, thank you so much, Allison. I'm excited to be here today. My name is Amber Karson, and I am a lecturer and an advisory council member in the Experience Industry Management department. I teach strategic event planning. I'm also the faculty advisor for a group of students who lead an annual event for our EIM auction and dinner. I am the founder and co-owner of Karson Butler Events. We are a boutique luxury event planning firm. We have offices in Washington, D.C., and now in California, in San Luis Obispo, where I reside. I have been an event planner for nearly 20 years, and I love what I'm doing, and I love that I get to now share that passion and knowledge with students. At Karson Butler Events, we plan a wide variety of different types of events, everything from corporate events, incentive travel programs. We work on social events like weddings and parties, and events in the wine industry. So a wide gamut. We work all over the United States and internationally, focusing on many destination events as well. In addition to those couple of hats I wear, we also started a general store for entertaining and celebrations called Karson Butler at the All Louis store, which is a historic building in downtown SLO. And I'm so excited. Hopefully next time you're visiting in SLO and we're able to gather again, you'll be able to come and visit that. It's also available online. I am really excited about tonight's class. I am joined by one of my esteemed colleagues in cafes, Melinda Lynch. I'm going to turn it over to Melinda to tell us a little bit about her background tonight before we dive in.
Hi, I'm Melinda Lynch, and I am a lecturer at Cal Poly in the Horticulture and Crop Science department. I teach the floral design classes, two different classes, Floral 1, 2 quarters a year, and Floral 2 in the spring. I also am the advisor to the National Floral Design Competition teams, and we have done very well in the last years. It's really exciting to see the students do well at that level and bring home awards on behalf of Cal Poly. Another hat that I wear while I'm at Cal Poly is I'm the manager of all the sales for the floral in the Cal Poly plant shop, and that is a great rewarding job. I have over 10 employees that work under me. They design arrangements that parents order, faculty people order for their events, and then they actually deliver them, and they get to see the customers happy with what they have created. It's very rewarding, and it's fun to work with these young people. I also, one more thing that I do is I own Festive Designs. It's a floral business here in San Luis Obispo. I've done weddings and events all throughout the year. I also have my daughter who helps me with that. She handles all of our social media, the Instagram and Facebook, and I'm very thankful. As a Cal Poly grad, I love having her as part of the team. So welcome. I am so excited that you're here today. This is one of my favorite designs to do as a florist.
Well, thank you, Melinda. We're excited tonight to dive in. So we're going to start with foraging. And what does it mean when we say foraging? Now that really means going outside, using what you have in your own home, in your own garden, maybe a neighbor's garden, finding things from the outdoors and bringing them in. So before we share some tips, I think we have another poll that we can put up. Out there in Zoom land here tonight, thanks again for joining us. What type of flowers do you have growing maybe in your own garden? Roses, hydrangeas, daisies, sunflowers, these are some popular ones. So we just want to see here. Great, it looks like a lot of you are growing roses. I've got some growing as well, and some few growing hydrangeas and a lot of other wonderful things. So this is fun to see what you're growing. We're gonna go ahead and get started with some best practices for foraging in your garden. Melinda, can you talk us through, maybe start us off with your tip for foraging outside?
I would love to. The first thing that you need to do is decide what time of day you're actually going to go and harvest your flowers and your foliage for your design. And there's two times of the day that are the best. You do not want your plant material to be hot. So you can do it in the early morning, or you can also do it in the late afternoon, early evening, when the plant is cool. Those are the best times to go out and collect the things that you might be using in your designs.
That's a great tip. The second tip we want to share tonight is just evaluating the vessel that you have. So just like you're foraging outside for the plant material you're going to be using, you also want to forage inside your house for maybe the container that you're going to be designing in. This could be something as simple as a pitcher that you have. Maybe it's an old mason jar. I love repurposing random containers that maybe food comes in, or maybe it's an old vase that you have from grandma's collection. So looking at your vessel that you're going to be designing in before you ever start going outside to cut is going to help you understand how much you're going to need to be able to fill that vessel.
And to be prepared when you go out, you really want to have 2 buckets. You want to have a bucket with water, and a third of a bucket with water is just plenty. You don't necessarily have to fill it all the way up, and it doesn't have to be heavy. And so third, we'll give it a nice amount of water so the stems can be hydrated while you're cutting. And then we suggest that you bring another bucket, an empty bucket. And that is for all your thorns off your roses, it's for your leaves, and it's also for your bugs. You're gonna pick these flowers and you're gonna see inside, you might have an earwig, you might have a spider, you might have a beetle. Well, those don't need to come into your house. So you can just turn the flower upside down, give it a little tap, and those insects will fall into your bucket. So once you've cleaned your flowers and you want to cut them at an angle so that more of the cambium layer is exposed, that way the flower will take up as much water and nutrients as possible. You can also remove the foliage from that, and then take that bucket of the foliage and dump it into your green waste, and then bring your flowers into the garage for storage overnight is a great location for those.
And when you're out there cutting, we want you to think beyond the flower itself only as an amazing piece of plant material to design with. So the flowers are great and we love those in arrangements, but think about green foliage, everything from branches, from leaves, from grasses, herbs growing in your garden, vines. All of these things can act as really great filler in your arrangement. Melinda's going to share some tips for working with those types of materials here in a moment. So think beyond just the flower when you're designing.
The next thing that we need to think about is when you're harvesting, you need to really look at the foliage. It's spring right now and everything is just wild and growing so well. It's so exciting after the winter rains. So when you come up to a shrub or a vine, look at the tips of that vine. And if it's a light green or if you touch it and it's tender, it's too young. It's not going to hold up. So try to go to the lower parts of that vine or that bush where you could actually trim the foliage off of that so that that foliage is going to be hardier. And those are the types of foliages you want to select for your arrangements. That way when you bring it into the house, they're not going to wilt. They're going to be alive and they're going to last throughout. They're probably going to last longer than your flowers and your designs. So it's a great tip to have in harvesting your flowers.
When you're out there cutting your plant material, you want to err on the side of cutting your stems longer. This is going to give you more flexibility in adjusting the height of your arrangement. When you have more stem, you can always cut shorter. You can't cut longer. So, you know, measure twice, cut once. You want to make sure you're giving yourself some room to play. So when you're out there trimming in your garden, make sure you're erring on the side of cutting things a little bit longer than you might even need. And that way you can trim them up depending on how you want them to fit within your arrangement.
And the next thing that we really need to think about is hydrating these flowers. It's probably the worst thing to go cut and then put it into an arrangement. It really needs to take up water and the nutrients. If you have any of the sugar packets that come with your flowers, let's say if you go to Trader Joe's, those can be put into the bottom of your bucket, and so that way those nutrients are going up that flower and they're going to hydrate it. You want it to be really full of water before you start designing. So that's what we want you to do is when you harvest, we want 12 hours if possible in between the time you harvest it and the time that you design. So if you design early in the morning, later in that day is a perfect time to do your arrangement. And again, if you do later in the day, then let it sit overnight where it's ready to go early in the morning.
I think that's such a great tip. I know personally, I never do that. So when I'm going to be designing from here forward, I'm going to be exhibiting patience and giving my flowers and my cuttings some time to drink some water. I think that's such a great tip. And our last tip is just to have fun and be creative. The whole point of foraging is you might not know until you get out there what you really need. So have fun and play and be creative with it. So I know many of you answered that you do grow some roses, and I grow quite a few roses here, and I'm still learning, new gardener here, and I get a little nervous about cutting my flowers, and all of my florist friends, they tell me, and I know this to be true, that they need to be cut in order to really flourish and do better and produce more blooms, but I get a little bit nervous. So we were able to spend some time with Melinda in the garden recently. I'm going to share a little clip in Melinda's own words of showing us how to best clip here in the garden.
Collecting your roses, and you can see that this rose is too far gone, so it's not going to last in the arrangement, but these two blossoms are absolutely beautiful. So I would come in here and snip off this older rose and remove it, and then you have the two that will work well in an arrangement. You could give it some length, and that way you could put it near the top of your design, versus if you cut them short, then it would have to go near the base of your arrangement. So when you come down here, it's best to come down and give it some, you want to have a bud that's outside of the rose so that it will take off and shoot another lateral shoot out. So you just examine the buds and see which is a little bit more predominant. If it's inside the bush, it's going to grow in the bush, and roses, you want everything to grow out. So I would come right in here and I would snip right there. I cut it at an angle so that the water does not sit on the stem and rot, and then this will take off and be another lateral shoot, and you have a beautiful stem that will work well on your arrangement, and you'll remove the thorns and the leaves near the bottom so they're not in the water.
We love those tips, Melinda, of really trimming. I know you're going to dive in here a little little more in our demo, and I'm excited to share that. But I think we have a pop quiz, because this is a learn by doing. We're going to have a little pop quiz for you. If we'll throw that up. My pop quiz is, what is a Kenzon? If you've heard of this, what is a Kenzon? Is it a tool used by florists to cut flowers? A device used to fix flowers in a container? A type of container used for flowers? Or a type of flower itself? So pop quiz, everybody. Got some answers coming in. Great, it looks like we've got some flower pros in the audience as well. We have a few different answers here. The correct answer of a Kenzon is it's a device used to fix flowers in a container. Melinda's gonna share some different techniques and mechanics for us, but these little things can be gold if you can find them at a yard sale or an estate sale or in grandma's cupboard. A Kenzon's gonna be your friend. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Melinda to share some floral arranging tips with us.
All right, wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm so excited you're here. This is how I teach. I do not buy baby's breath, leather fern, and carnations for my class at Cal Poly. I forage all the grounds at Cal Poly on the weekends. It's so fun. I just totally love it. I get my buckets, my clippers, and away I go. And so whatever the design is for that week, then I go around and collect the items that the students will be able to use. I do not want to have enough of the same product so that the students have to all have the same arrangement, look the same. I want them to become wonderful designers. So this is a great way to encourage that with your students or with yourself. And so to start today, we think about designing flowers and you're just like, oh my gosh, it makes me so nervous. I don't even want to do it. I'm just nauseous. I can't even think about it. I go to the grocery store, I grab some flowers, I come home, I put them in a vase and they're all over the place and it's so ugly. And I would say, yes, you're probably right. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk mechanics. If you have some sort of a vessel and you put some sort of mechanics into that vessel so that the flowers will stay in one place, they are going to do so much better than being all over and wild and out of control. You're going to feel better as a designer. So I'm going to go over some mechanics for you today. So if maybe you don't have the Kenzon, which is totally fine, maybe you do have one of the other items that I'm going to talk about. So the first off the bat is the Kenzon, and it's heavy, it's metal, it's like a bed of nails. So if you're going to design in this, I'm going to do the major design today in this, and it's like I have to be really careful because when you push that stem into this bed of nails, if your fingers slip, it's going to hit those nails and it hurts. So you have to be really careful that you don't do that. But it's got great weight, and so it will rest really well in a low dish. And also another thing that we can do too is, if this is another type of Kenzon, this is a low dish. And all I've done is taken some stones and put them nestled around the edge of the dish. And so the Kenzon is really secure inside this low dish. So that's an option for you. The other option would be a frog. And this frog that I have here is clear. It's got some beautiful holes in it. This is wonderful because it's clear. So if you had it in glass, it's not going to be the green Kenzon like this one or frog. And so it's not, the mechanics aren't going to show. So this is a great one if you had a glass container. And if you say, I don't have any of these things, Melinda, I cannot do this at all. What are you going to do next? The next thing is you're going to decide is, if you go to the dollar store, maybe you even have them around, or just marbles. And that works really well as far as putting your flowers right into the bottom of the container. And so then the last one that I have, if you say, I have no marbles, I have no Kenzon, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? If you have Scotch tape, we're in luck. So you can take any type of container and you can put a grid across the top of the container so your flowers will stay right where you want them. And then take another long piece and wrap it all the way around. So in case some water drips, this tape does not get wet and it's going to be really secure. Your container has to be dry before putting this tape on. Otherwise, it's not going to work. It'll totally come off. So those are some different ideas with Kenzons and mechanics for your arrangement. So the ones that I have here today, this one is all done. And this is a glass container, and I have marbles in the bottom. So I have just put roses in here. There's really no foliage except for the foliage that's in or on the rose stems. And so this is fine if it's all roses and you're just like, oh, that's pretty, that's nice. But if you want to take it to the next level, I have really enjoyed going out and collecting things for my yard. So I have wisteria growing in my yard. And so this is a branch of wisteria. So all you do is you come in here, you remove all of the foliage, and so you have this lovely vine. I learned this technique. I never thought of it, but I learned this technique. We were traveling, we did a international competition in Italy, and the designer that we worked for, he had all of my students defoliate all of these vines, and then he used the vines in his arrangement. But as you can see, it's so fun. It's just flowing. It's just like this live bush. And so when you look at this design and you rotate it around, you can see the movement in this design. And it's not heavy, it's very light, but you could actually put this on a coffee table, you could put it on a dining room table, and if you were going to have dinner, you could move it to the side if it's a little bit higher than what you would normally like. If you say, oh, it still needs more, Melinda, well, what I have done is I went out to the horticulture unit. We have lots of things growing, and so I cut off this little chunk of grass. And then rather than try to put all the loose grass in this arrangement and have it behave, I just took the Scotch tape and I made a little band right around the, near the bottom of this. I gave it a fresh cut, and then I moved the rose sprays over. These roses are all grown at Cal Poly in our greenhouses, and they're absolutely beautiful. They're garden roses, and they're so fun to use, and the colors are absolutely beautiful. And what's so fun is if we cut them and they have just a little bit of a crack on the rose, it's going to last. It's going to open up, and it's just so exciting to see your arrangements get more beautiful as the time goes on. So that is the one design. The next one I'm going to do today is this one. This is in a low-footed glass bowl. At the bottom, I have a Kenzon, and then to secure the Kenzon, I've used gravel. So if I didn't want to use the big rocks, the gravel also works well. I've started out with a little branch of the gladiolas, and those are from my neighbor's yards. People say, oh, the gladiola, it's starting to die, the blossoms are at the end. Just remove those, because the blossoms at the top of a gladiola will open. It's really exciting to actually take that flower, remove those lower blossoms, and then still get some life out of that one. This is really a soft, the florets of a gladiola are so soft and beautiful. I've also taken larkspur. This is grown in our retractable greenhouse at Cal Poly, and they're just so pretty and so light, and they're a linear flower. So you want to think about the types of flowers that you have. You're going to have a mass flower, you're going to have, which is something that's big and full, like these open garden roses. You're going to have a line flower. The larkspur is a line flower. A gladiola is a line flower. And then you're going to have a form flower, something that has some unusual shape. And so a bird of paradise is a great example of that. A sunflower can go either way. It could be a mass flower, or it could also be a form flower. So those are some of the things you'll think about when you're out harvesting your flowers. So to start our arrangement, I've got my line flowers in place. And so now what I'm going to do is just take the big garden roses that I've harvested, just so pretty. They're just so simple and they're so pretty. And so cut them at the end and then come down, and you're going to put these right into the base of your design, and you're going to rotate it around. What's on one side of the arrangement does not necessarily have to be on the other. You're bringing the garden into your home. So the garden is not perfect. There's little things going on in your gardens. One side might have something growing and another side might have something else growing. So these are the things that you really want to enjoy and not be so, oh, everything's got to match. It's just, oh, just be relaxed and enjoy it. And just say, oh, this is going to be fun. I'm going to put this over here. This is going to work. I also have these little spray roses. They're hot pink. And again, the center one is on its way out, but it's still absolutely beautiful. And it's rotated around with lots of lateral blossoms. And so if we put those in, that's a nice little fill around the base of this arrangement. I have another one, and so I'm going to move that over to the other side, just because pink is a dark color, and you want to make sure that it's balanced a little bit so that it's not all dark colors on one side, because what will happen is that your arrangement won't be balanced visually, and so you're going to say, oh, I don't like it. And so this is one way to help make it so that you do enjoy it. We also have some beautiful garden roses. They're light pink, and those were also grown at Cal Poly. We have wonderful greenhouses at Cal Poly, and they have so many different flowers. Susan Snyder is another lecturer in our department, and she is the grower, and we share an office at Cal Poly. It's great. And she always says, Melinda, what do you want? And I said, well, it's the time of the year. And so she's really been instrumental in bringing some wonderful flowers for our students to use in the plant shop. And we always talk about what color, what's going to happen in spring quarter, what's going to happen in winter quarter, what's going to happen in fall quarter. And then we coordinate the flowers that she orders so that when we get these flowers and when we go to make the bouquets that we sell on campus and we also sell in different markets, it gives us an avenue to sell something that is the right color for that time of year. So the next thing that we're going to do here, we have sunflowers. This is grown in our retractable greenhouse. I thought this would be a great flower to have here tonight because sunflowers are in people's yards. So what I'm going to do on this little design is I'm going to put the sunflower into the center, and then I have 3 other ones. So I'm going to basically take how a sunflower grows, and I'm going to graduate them down so that this is, everybody has its own space. And so you're going to start with the top one and then graduate down. So if you looked at the side of this design, we have a cluster of sunflowers. So it looks like it's actually growing in the arrangement. That looks more natural. And it's just so fun to see something that actually you brought in and it's actually looks more like it's just still growing in the yard. The next thing I have are these beautiful anemones. These are absolutely gorgeous. They're so fun. And so I've got 2 of them. They're just such beautiful blossoms. I really need to show them off. So I'm going to put them into the center of this design so that they're going to fill on either side of the arrangement. They're going to be at different levels. It's nice to have everything at different levels rather than pairs. I call them eyeballs. You want to have things graduate, and so there's different levels of everything, and it all works. I have a yellow rose, which I have the yellow on this side, so I'm going to counterbalance that with the yellow on this side, so that's wonderful. So I only have 1 yellow rose. It doesn't matter. I don't have to have 5 yellow roses. I can just have that one. I'm also making it balanced with the sunflowers on the other side, so it's not going to be all roses. It gives a little bit more variety when you get 1 or 2 things in your garden and you bring them in and you would put them into your design. The next thing that I have to use are sweet peas, and they need to be planted in October is the best time. And again, they have lots of little stems, and so if you're trying to put all these little stems in that Kenzon, it's going to be really difficult. So if you just take a little bit of the Scotch tape, again, make a little band, come over here, you're going to cut it. Another thing, you want to cut it straight across so that it will go right into that bed of nails and sit right where you want it to be. And you can see how that little cluster of sweet peas is just staying right where you want it to stay. And that way, it's going to give a nice little smell. You don't have them all falling all over. You are in control. You need to be in control of your arrangement. It makes you happy as a designer. So I have another bunch, and I'm going to counterbalance that on the other side so that we have a little touch of sweet peas on both sides of this arrangement. Then the next thing, I have another anemones. These are also grown at Cal Poly, and they're so pretty. Oh, they're so delicate. I just love them. So again, we need to show this off. We don't want to just nestle this down into the bottom. We want them to show off and just have people walk up and just go, oh, look at that flower. That's so wonderful. So I love to get reactions from my students when they do their work. And it's really fun when you can think of different things to do, so that we do midterms in the library, and if I can teach them something so that someone will stop and look at their arrangement, it's just so wonderful. In competition, you definitely want to do it. So this, and then I'm just going to go over a couple of tips. This anemone is past its prime. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to remove the petals, because some of them have burn marks, some of them have bug has decided to have a lunch on it. And basically just going to show you this beautiful center. It's the flower parts of the anemone, and then also this lovely little collar of foliage. It's just so graceful. So it's just so light, it's so airy. So that's going to work really well near the top of this design. It just gives it interest, because people go, well, what is that? Is it going to bloom? Well, not really, because it's all done and I just took everything off of it. But it's just a fun little added thing. The other thing is Gerber daisies. If you remove the petals of a Gerber daisy, what happens is you get this lovely little bud. And so whenever you go to buy Gerbers, if you go to the store and you buy them and you go, oh, this one's bad, I gotta throw it away. No, pull all the petals off. It's so fun when you can put something into your arrangement and someone will go, oh my goodness, what is it? The next thing is to do it with a sunflower. So you pull these, you gotta pull them down. And so that way you don't have a little white, whoops, I just broke the whole thing. You don't have a little white tail, but if you pull these at an angle, they'll come right off. But this is another one. If the sunflower has some of the petals that are missing, you get this wonderful pod. And we would have had a stem, but I broke it off. But this is another fun thing. So if you did a wedding and you had sunflowers in the bouquets, and then you put these in the boutonnieres, oh, it's so fun. What is that? Oh, it's just sunflower. Oh, really? So I've got a couple more things to add and then we'll finish. I have some succulents in my yard, and so this is a blossom off of one of them, and I said, oh, you were so pretty. You have got to come in here. So again, it's very linear, so it's going to be perfect near the top. I have some dill. Last night I was deciding, and I called my neighbor and I said, oh, may I please come to your yard? They, oh, please do. So they have this wonderful dill. It's so light and airy. And so again, if I rotate this around, I know I have a perfect little spot, which is right there. And so we're going to put this dill in. It just gives it another fun little cluster. And the other thing that I have is lavender. And again, lavender has lots of little stems. So if you try to put those all in, it's not going to work. So use that tape thing and do your little band, and then you can have a little cluster of lavender. And then the last thing to do is this is honeysuckle. And honey, if you've ever smelled honeysuckle, it's just so lovely. You can tell I just love flowers. I get so excited when I go out and I can trim things and then smell. Oh, it's like, oh, this is a good day. This is a good day. And so come under here and just tuck this honeysuckle. You don't need a lot. You just kind of need it to cascade. It kind of, wherever it grows, it's a vine, and it's kind of got that free form vine feeling to it. So to just tuck it in around the bottom of your arrangement, it's just absolutely wonderful. If you wanted to add some foliage to that, I have some sword fern growing in the yard. Again, it's little stems, so I just did a little cluster, added a little tape around it, and then I can just put in a little cluster of sword fern off to the side. And the last thing is that you feel like, oh, it needs a little pizzazz. I love to go out, and these are grasses that are grown at Cal Poly. I've got wild oats and these other grasses. So again, it's lots of little stems, so I did the little band. And if I come in here into the center, just open it up a little bit and gently put this right down to the center of this arrangement, it gives it a little splash. And so that is the excitement of this arrangement. So if you're saying, oh, okay, this is great, Melinda, you did a beautiful arrangement, lovely, but I can't see across the table. And if I'm gonna have a dinner party, how is that gonna work? Well, right now we can only have so many people over. So what we could do to make this work really well is that you can go out and you can get vines. This is smilax or Springer asparagus fern. And another thing is if you have a crooked stem, embrace it. Those are so fun. You can just take this, you can just put this into the side of your design, have it cascade onto your table. You can get some vines that might be growing. If you did the vines that are in the other arrangement, that's another fun technique. Just take this and put it into the arrangement and have it wrap around so that we have a little bit of this cascading foliage that comes onto your tabletop. You scoot your arrangement over to the side, and then we have a few little vases. They're basically votive cups. And if some people don't want to have candles burning, these are a great little thing that you can just put down your table, and then you can go and you can grab a couple of blossoms of whatever you had out in the garden, and you can actually put these right into your arrangements, into your containers. And what you're doing is you're bringing a little bit of this color down the table. And so that way it just spreads it out from the arrangement all the way down. And you can go, I've only done 3, but you could actually go all the way down the table and just have the large arrangement off to the side. So it's a way to bring your flowers into your home and have them spread all the way down your table. And if it was for a party for 2, this would be really, you deserve it. Have these flowers in your house and do these arrangements. It's so fun. I just love it. This year we are online for spring quarter. And I thought, oh no, my kids are gonna design. So I have shipped things to them, and they are actually designing at their homes, and they're sending me their finished product. So it's absolutely wonderful. And I hope you enjoyed that demo.
Well, thank you so much, Melinda. I see we have a few questions that are coming through. We're gonna have a Q&A session at the end. We'll ask you some great questions, but that's amazing to see that design come to life. It's beautiful to watch you work, and so many little tips and tricks. I especially love the gathering our small stems together with some tape before we put them in the arrangement. I think that's such an easy trick that I'm gonna start implementing for sure. Well, we're gonna go ahead, and I'm going to just take everything that I've learned on floral arrangement. We're gonna move to table design, and I'm excited to share just a few quick fundamentals of tabletop design now that we have a beautiful arrangement. We need somewhere to put it, right? So my best tip for you all when you're planning your tabletop, so this could be your dinner table tonight with your family, or maybe you're dreaming of Thanksgiving dinner. I can't wait personally until we can all be gathered around table with friends. There's nothing better than breaking bread. Baking bread, I think, is a trend right now. Anyone trying sourdough? But breaking bread with friends. My best tip for you is just to plan ahead. When we think about tabletop design at Karson Butler events, we're really thinking about designing in layers and starting from the base. So what type of table are you designing for? Is that a wood picnic table that you have outside in your yard? Is it a round table that you're gonna be dining at in your dining room, or a long rectangular table? So thinking about what that base looks like before we're thinking about the overall design. The next step is really adding textiles. So this can be a traditional tablecloth, which I love, but it doesn't need to be that fancy either, everyone. This is a Turkish bath towel, and I love this as a falta, and I carry this with me everywhere. I travel a lot for my job, so I bring this on the plane. It serves as my wrap when I'm cold on the airplane. I can use it as a sarong at the beach if I'm going to somewhere tropical. It can be a great picnic table if I'm out enjoying some wine in the valley that I love, but it also works great as a makeshift table runner. So think about the pieces of fabric that you might have at your house. Maybe it's a scarf that you love, or some other sort of remnant that you have. It doesn't need to be a formal tablecloth, but adding some sort of textile to your tabletop really gives it that luxe feel. The next step is really setting a base plate. So I know a lot of times for Thanksgiving, you might have a buffet line set up on your counter, and maybe you just stack the plates. And I would suggest to kind of step it up a notch, set your table with those dinner plates ahead of time. There's something formal about coming up to a table that's been set properly. Your guests can just as easily grab that table, that plate from the table, and then take it through your countertop buffet line. So think about the base plate and what that's gonna look like. Set your non-perishable items. So you can do this the night before. If you have a company coming over, take care of all of the table setting before, because you're gonna be busy cooking that day. You wanna make sure that you're setting this, so all of your plates, your utensils, your glassware, that can all go down early. And then you really want to evaluate the real estate that you have left on your tabletop. So if you're serving something family style, like let's say it's Thanksgiving dinner, I encourage you to take inventory of the platters that you're going to be actually serving. Use a little Post-it note system and know exactly what dishes you're serving, what they're going to be served on, and put that down on your tabletop ahead of time and map it out. And it sounds silly, but it'll save you a lot of time and energy later when you should be focused on just entertaining with your friends. So take a time to evaluate your real estate. That's really going to give us an idea of how much room do we even have left. So when we're designing at Karson Butler, we're thinking about that tablescape in layers before we're even reaching out to our florist and thinking about, you know, are we doing a family style meal or is this a plated meal? How much real estate do we have left to work with? So really letting the food be the star. I can't say, I love place settings, but a beautiful white plate. You can see in this image here, the flowers really pop, the food is the star. A lot of us have a plain white everyday china, and I think there's nothing wrong with setting that even for a formal occasion. that can really be the star. Now I'm an event planner and designer, so I'm also gonna say that sometimes it's okay for the place setting to be the star too. I love the art of making someone feel special, and I think when you are having people over for dinner, if you make time to have something special on their place setting, that can be really nice too. This is a picture from an event in Maui. Melinda, you mentioned those little votives arranging in something small. This was actually, we had menu cards. This was overlooking the water and the wind picked up. We had little flower arrangements at each place setting to actually use as a weight for the menu card, but those guests were able to take those and enjoy them in their hotel rooms. I love the idea of something tiny and simple that people can take away as an amenity. I actually, when I teach my food and beverage section in class, I actually spend some time on the place setting. And this may sound pretty simple. We're not teaching people to set the tables, but I think this is a skill that everyone should have for many reasons. As an event planner, when I'm building out a budget and I'm coming up with an equipment line item, how am I gonna know how much to budget for if I don't even know what the line items are? If we have a big gala for 500 people, I'm gonna need to know all the different pieces of equipment that are gonna need to go into that equipment line item. If I'm working with the caterer and the chef, I wanna talk to them about how long is the service gonna take? How long will the servers take to clear that china for those various courses? That's gonna affect my timeline. It's going to affect my run of show and my program design. So the basics art of setting a place setting is something that I use this exercise in a class in the food and beverage section, and I think it's important. At the most basic level, most of us here on the call tonight were probably invited to a business dinner at one point in our careers, and you don't want to be the person that sits down at the table and grabs the wrong roll off of your plate and messes it up for everyone at the table, and we've all probably been at a dinner where someone's done that. So I'm going to share with you just a few little tips about setting a proper place setting. My little trick here is if you can remember the word forks, you're going to remember how to set the table properly. So F-O, you're going to forget about the R, K, and S. So F is for our forks. That's easy. That's going to be the first thing we set. O is our big base plate. You're going to forget that R. K is for knives, and S is for spoon. So forks, if you can remember F-O, forget the R, K, S, you'll remember the order that your place settings should be. The S, the soup spoon should not be set unless you're actually serving soup on your menu. So a lot of times that's left off unless you have an appetizer course that needs it. Another little tip and trick is how do we remember what side the bread plate is set on, what side the drink. So I want you guys all on Zoom land here, and we're so happy you're here, thank you. I want you all to make fists for me. If everyone can do this right now, I can see a few of you on here. So make fists, and then point your index fingers. You're gonna make fists, point your index fingers. Now look down at your hands. You're gonna see a B on your left. B is for bread, and your D is on your right side. D is for drinks. So when you sit down at that next business dinner, under the table, you can make your fist, point your index fingers. You're gonna remember B for bread, D for drinks. You're never gonna grab the wrong bread ever again. So I hope you like that little tip and trick. But that's an easy way to remember how to set your table. The other common mistake that I see in place settings is our dessert utensils. So a dessert fork and a dessert spoon are going to be right there on top of your base plate. If you are serving apple pie a la mode, you might have both the dessert fork and the spoon. If you are having just apple pie, you might just see a fork down, for instance. So again, you want to set utensils based on the menu itself. But if you're thinking about how do we remember which way these utensils should face, I just think about grabbing the ends of these utensils. And if you remember our little trick forks, if I grab the end of my utensils and I brought those two things down to the place setting, my fork would go on my fork side, my spoon would go on my spoon side. So again, that little trick forks is gonna help you remember. So I hope that you like that little place setting lesson. I have one more little trick for you tonight. So napkin ideas. I clipped some things in my garden just right before we started here tonight. And I think a napkin, we're gonna send you some napkin folds. I'm gonna show you a few here. You're gonna get a handout with some fancier napkin folds, but I love just a gathered napkin. I just tied this with a pretty little ribbon. I've cut some rosemary, some mint, and some nasturtium that are growing in my garden. These are all things that are commonly used by a chef. And so if you have rosemary on your menu, it's great to clip some of that, tuck it into your napkin. You can encourage, if you're making your arrangement, clip some of it for your floral arrangement. And nasturtium is a great edible flower. It's beautiful in salads and it looks really pretty in a napkin as well. So these are all just little easy things that you can do to garnish your table. I'm gonna share with you a few slides here. You're gonna get a handout of this. I'm not gonna go through this tonight, but these are some napkin folds we're gonna send you so that you can practice at home. And it's really just about making your guests feel special. So with that, we're gonna open it up. We have some questions that came through. And the first one, Melinda, was regarding roses. Like, do those always need to be cut at a slant? Talk us through that a little bit more. I know you showed some of that in the video.
Yes, please. It's better to cut them at an angle and hydrate them in the arrangement. When you're gonna cut them and put them into a Kenzon, it needs to be a flat, straight cut because it needs to come in on that bed of nails. So an angle is really hard to have it stay right where you want it. So if it's gonna go into a vase, please at an angle. And really, basically in the real world, all the florists use knives. In my classroom, I tried that and I had more Band-Aids passed out every lab period. So we've switched to clippers. But if you're going to go work in a plant shop or a flower shop, you you want to learn how to use that knife so that those flowers will be hydrated the best way they possibly can.
That's great, Melinda. Another question here. Talk to us a little bit about flower preservatives. Do you recommend using, if we get those little packets that come in the flower arrangement, or is that something that you can do at home?
Yes, if you have them, you don't necessarily put the whole packet into your vase. It's just you put a portion in it. And as I teach my students, you don't put out a glass of water and drink from that same glass of water all week. You give yourself fresh water every day. And those flowers should have fresh water every day. And if you can put more food in, empty water, more food, new water, the flowers are going to last so much longer. It's just so surprising. It's just that one little trick, but man, it really, really works.
So just really rinsing that vase out with fresh water every day. That's great. Great. And then just a question that came through, the Kenzon. Yes, there's a lot of different names for this. Melinda, can you go through what some other common names that people might call these?
Well, Kenzon was what I was taught when I was at Cal Poly, and the other name that I looked it up in the supply book, and it's a pin frog. And so that's what you went to order it in the supplies catalog, that's what there's under. And so I did hear that. And then frogs is another one, but that Kenzon with those nail base, that is basically, I would say it's a pin frog or a Kenzon. The other ones could be frogs.
Great. We've got some great questions coming here in the chat. Is there a benefit of taking thorns off of the roses, aside from just not getting pricked?
That's probably the best one, because if you're going to do an arrangement, whenever we get flowers harvested at Cal Poly, we have to take the thorns off. There's nothing worse than handing people flowers and they grab it and their hand goes into the arrangement by accident and they get stuck with a rose thorn. You just really want to make sure that you don't take any of the stem off. So if you can clip it with your clippers and remove that little point, that helps. You just don't want to damage it. I used to tell my students when they're cleaning the flowers with the strippers, you just don't want to rip it. It's like taking your fingernails and ripping your skin. It hurts. And I give a visual like that, and then they know, oh, that's going to hurt that flower. So it's the same thing. And that way they don't do it, and it works. So yes, be very gentle and kind to your flowers, and they will serve you well.
Great. So I think we have time for just a couple more here. So you talked about making these little tape bundles to put some things together. When you're refreshing your water, are you refreshing the tape on those little bundles every time? Or do you, once it's in its arranged form, is it staying pretty secure there?
Yes, you would really want to recut them when you're putting them back into your arrangement. If you're going to pull it out, if you can tip the arrangement, leave everything in its place, fill it up immediately with water, then you can leave them. If you start pulling things out, everything gets a fresh cut when it goes back in.
Great advice. A couple just quick tips for, I think someone's asking about the purple flower there in the arrangement. I think that's the anemone that we're seeing here in the front. No, just up a little bit. I don't know what that one is. What is that one, Melinda?
Anemone also.
Oh, it is. Perfect. Yeah, those are beautiful.
Lavender one and the big one. And
Great.
there's also this little anemone too. We grow all of these at Cal Poly, so they're really fun. But this is a bulb flower, and a lot of people have bulbs in their yard in the spring. And so that's why I wanted to add them into the mix tonight.
That's perfect. We've got another question here about ideas for different chargers. So yeah, I love just if you had a piece of paper that you like, a scrapbooking piece of paper, can even be used, set down as like a placemat, and then set your china on top of it. A beautiful napkin underneath can work the same way. I think I love setting each place setting. I love setting like fresh fruit on the plate to use as a beautiful arrangement if we're not having a napkin full with a flower tucked in, but thinking about individualized you know, a place setting that feels special and different. It doesn't have to be super expensive. It can be things that you have around. We love kind of in the event world, like a little handwritten note in a little envelope at each guest. Like if it's Thanksgiving, if you wanted to have a little "I'm thankful for you" note card at each set. I mean, there's all sorts of ideas to make those place settings feel real special. And then a question for you, Melinda, coming through here. Repeating, I think you mentioned, how do we get those bugs off? We want to make sure we're shaking them pretty well when they come off the garden.
Right. It's funny because I was harvesting the roses last night and I shook it and it didn't, everything came out. And then when I got back into my shop and started looking at it again, another little earwig made its way up and it was like embedded in the petals. So you really have to just take your fingers and look around to see if there's anybody else down there in their little homes loving life and make sure that they are exiting before they come into your house. So that helps. Just take 2 looks instead of 1.
That's definitely, you know, it's extra friends inside the house for sure. We have a few requests for a recipe to make your own flower preserver. So I'm not going to put you on the spot with that one if you don't have it, but we can follow up with everyone and see if there's any sort of home recipes for making our own flower preserver. Someone's saying crushed aspirin they've heard of. Is there any? I know like a penny sometimes in a vase, if you have tulips, for instance, can help them stand up a little bit longer. Are there any other things that come to mind off the top of your head, Melinda?
I've heard that one, and I've also heard 7-Up because it's got sugar in it. So if you put a little bit of 7-Up in your water, that's the sugar in it. It's the same thing. It just doesn't have the chemical in there to kill any bacteria. And that's why those little flower packets are so great, because they have both the sugar and also the ingredients to watch the bacteria in your vase or vessel.
And then I have a question here. We mentioned when, no matter the day, decide when you're getting outside together, it's windy, any ideas to keep tablecloths on a table without loading them up too much? This is a tough one, especially we've got some great afternoon winds that come through here. So really, you know, there are those little tablecloth clamps that you can order to clip your tablecloth in place. But I would say, think about, you know, doing a tablecloth alternative. Like, you don't necessarily always need a huge tablecloth, maybe just have a runner, but a trick of the trade is your chair placement. So really having somebody sit on the ends can help with that tablecloth flying up. So if you're normally not setting everybody around, you can change that up. Last little questions here. I think we have some alternative ideas to table centerpieces that are not flowers. That's a good one. Well, I mean, we talked about foraging non-flower alternatives, Melinda. So,
Well, I teach a class where I don't give them any flowers. It's all foliage and succulents. And those are so fun because they really have to think about how beautiful that foliage is and how they can use it. So that's another one. Succulents is another one. Those work really well if you actually put the succulent into the arrangement and it's a little short stem, a toothpick into the bottom of that, and it will hold really well. You could also use floral foam if you have any, but if you've used the floral foam, it needs to go into the trash, and you need to start with a fresh brick because it won't hydrate the whole brick solid, and you want it all full of water as your mechanics for that.
And I love a bowl of fruit, quite honestly. If I don't have fresh flowers in the house, but if I have a bowl of lemons or oranges or citrus, like, that's an easy way to have a beautiful table centerpiece without having to go out and forage if you just don't have time. So with that, I think I'm going to turn it back over to our friend Allison here. Thank you so much. On behalf of Melinda and myself, it's been fun to collaborate together with the college, and hopefully you guys are enjoying these series. So Allison.
Yeah, thank you, Amber and Melinda. That was an awesome class. So just a couple of closing remarks here. As Melinda mentioned in her demonstration, many of the flowers she used are grown on campus in our greenhouses. As we look to the future, Cal Poly is planning on building a new plant science complex that will include state-of-the-art greenhouses. You can find more information about this new facility on our website, cafes.calpoly.edu, and we will put it in the chat for you. If we weren't able to answer your question during this class, please feel free to reach out to Melinda and Amber via email. We will also add their emails to the chat and put them on the website. And also, don't forget to post photos of your floral and table designs using hashtag #LearnByDoingAtHome. We would absolutely love to see your creations. And if you want to rewatch today's lesson or forward it to a friend, you can find a recording at cafes.calpoly.edu. Please be sure to tune in next week on Wednesday, May 20th from 5 to 6 p.m. for an episode on sausage making and grilling tips with Jim Douglas. Thank you so much for joining and happy designing.